We have so many stories in our lives, but our stories are not always heard. On the Hear My True Story podcast, we tell our own true stories.
Before the white car parked, our head teacher had scattered. Looking at him, I could only see his tie that was flying backwards, waving at us, and he disappeared in thin air.
I want to share my life story. I want to share my voice with the people because I know that just a small joke I can tell through this podcast, it will make someone smile.
When you ask me what I fear most in life, I would definitely respond to you and say it's fear itself.
We are fighting for togetherness. We are fighting for equal rights. We are fighting to end injustice.
You don't have to be a storyteller or writer because, guess what? Life writes the best stories.
Hear my true story.
This is your favorite time of the week with your number one podcast.
Hear my true story.
Mutandikwa kyali kigambo kyatonda omuntu n'ebitone ebirala. Omuntu yaweebwa ekitiibwa mu butonzi akuume n'ebitonde ebirala. Takoma okwo abeere mujagujagu ayongere ku butonzi. Mirembe gyamuweebwa okutonda oba okusaanyaawo kyasiimye. Obuntu mu buntu kyensaba, obuntu mu buntu nze naawe otakwo. Obuntu mu buntu kyensaba, obuntu mu buntu nze naawe. This verse is for you, my brother. Obuntu mu buntu kyensaba, obuntu mu buntu nze naawe. Yeah, I'm going to sing the last verse for you. Yeah. And for our dear listeners. Yeah. Ndi mavivi katonda wange, saba kumanya n'amagezi. Tere emikisa mu mirimu gyange, sobole okuzimba ensi. Abalijja baligamba twasobola kuzimba emisingi kwe balinnya. Let me stop from there.
So, thank you so much, Edwin Matovu. Yes, our dear listeners, my name is Otako, the host of the podcast.
This week's special guest on your favorite podcast.
Hear my true story.
Yes, Mr. Teacher, you a teacher. Please, can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, once again, my name is Edwin Matovu. I come from Uganda and I am an artist. Yeah, I'm a simple man living in Germany right now.
And a teacher.
Yeah, I'm a teacher too.
Yeah, but anyway, Edwin Matovu.
Yeah.
As we talked about in our previous episode of this podcast, we talked about so much how can we empower ourselves, our black people living here in Europe or in Germany, yeah, or I would say like that. So, I mean, Edwin, do you have any personal experience as a teacher in regard that issue of racism against black people, where you felt a bit in your career discriminated? I mean, you are free to talk about it and you are free not to talk about it. You can tell me that, Otako, of course, I'm not ready to talk about this. And that is okay.
Yeah. Thank you for that really question. But it's really a challenging question. But I can regard to it as putting it like self-esteem.
I mean, you are going to self-esteem. I just asked experience. If
Yeah.
you don't have it, you
So,
don't
yeah.
have it. You are free not to say it, Adrian. You don't have to say it.
Yeah, right. Me as working as a teacher, because teacher, you have to be vocal. That's the first thing element. Be vocal and be present to your students, So, but one of the challenges I really have, I can say, it's the language, because I can't be really vocal and I can't really express myself as a teacher as I want or as I would be because of the language. And because of that, it puts my self-esteem to be low, And in certain cases, I also, when I speak to different friends of mine, also they have the same problem, that we have a lot to share, we have a lot to learn, we have a lot, to bring out, but we can't find a way of bringing them out, and we find ourselves with our experience, with our knowledge, with our skills. We cannot express ourselves, and that takes us to kind of depression, that takes us to low self-esteem, and you can't fear people, I remember when I first engaged myself in a community here in Germany, and they introduced me as like a dance teacher in a certain school. That's a long time ago. And I had to express myself. I have to say, okay, let's stand up. Everyone takes a place, put your hands up and everything. But when they introduced me, at first when I was outside, they're like, yeah, I've been teaching for a long time. This is my game, I know how to do it. I know my choreographies. I was confident. My dear, when I entered the dance studio, the hall for the kids, and there are many rating, that excitement for kids. They're learning something for new. So the person who was like coordinating the workshop introduced me, and we first talked, of course, about me, but in Dutch. And then all of a sudden he turned into English and said, Edwin Matov, it's your turn, take the floor. My God, that's when I realized that's not only dancing, not only having skill, that you can still stand a man. I felt so low. I felt like I want to to go somewhere and I hide. But of course, I had to stand because it was a workshop. And I did it, but I wasn't myself. To be true, I wasn't really myself, because the kids have like some questions they want to ask, and these quick questions. Can I redo this? And I always had to say, can we go to the left? And then I had to ask like coordinator, what is she saying? She should go to the right. Oh yeah. Every time to be like having interpretation and everything. And from that workshop, I wasn't the same. That energy I brought from Uganda, the skill I had, the excitement and the willing to share and to learn, I became really down. So the next workshops, I was really down, expecting for questions. How am I going to handle? I starting to learn some words in Dutch, So experience as a teacher, I can put it more in that aspect. And sometimes we could say related to the racism, the question you asked me, most of the things maybe they have been statements raised and I cannot understand maybe from the kids. Like the workshop I attended a long time ago, one kid raised their hand and said, we have a question. I say, yeah, go to the question. In Uganda, do you have food? Do people eat? And, that point, it might sound stupid. Which kind of question? I'm also a human being. We're also people. So you cannot live without eating. But it's a kid. And the media, what it portrays, that the people in Africa, they die of hunger, they are poverty, there's a lot of poverty, they are killing each other. So totally it's like they are animals, all in all. That's what they portray. We need to help them. So, and the kid raised this question. And I was with the people who used to work with, also fellow Africans. We laughed at first. But the kid was serious. You want to answer. Do you eat, guys? And of course, one of us had to come out and say, yeah, we eat, we have food. And he said, also we have rice, also we have kartoffel, we have potatoes, to explain that you eat. And another one raised, do you eat animals? Do you stay with animals? Do you have houses? So that kind of question, they might sound racist in that aspect. I say, I'm a human being. I'm also a human being. We sleep, we eat. But for the kids, they don't know.
Yeah, of course, children have the questions and you need to answer them.
Yeah.
But the point you already said it, that the media portrays something else.
Yeah.
So do you think it's the problem of the school, or do you think it's the problem of the parents? How can this kind of questions stop not to be raised by young people, by children? How can we support them to learn? Because for them, they want to learn. They're asking questions.
Yeah.
And you need to answer them.
Yes. So me as an African teacher who works in the class now, I make sure I portray who we are, Africans, put it in Geno or Ugandan. I do things which are normal people do them, and I portray not only poverty.
I think there's no normal people in life.
Okay, sorry, maybe it was a slight of a tongue. But of course, there's this kind of people, pity, who are like, you have to go for pity. When you see an African, oh, poor man, what do you want? Do you sleep? Can we help you? Is this, there's this aspect. I've been facing it a lot of time. People see you, you come, they ask for a job, you come as someone who wants that job. And instead of engaging in a professional interview, someone feels pity for you. They give job out of sympathy.
And of course, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
You as person being given that job, if you see that you got a job because someone thinks of sympathy, then that's super racism against the black people, because it's done in a very thinking you're helping me. But of course you're discriminating me. You're not helping me. I need to be judged, of course, on my profession, on my skills, on my capacity of doing the job, and so I have the requirements, not to sympathize.
Yeah.
Is it what you're trying to say?
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is also the role of the teachers. And of course, I cannot put in the media right now. Let me focus on as a teacher. So it's the teachers now who have to engage these kids to the real life, not to the media things they say on the media, but also to talk about the stories. What are Africans do? So let's give an example of like the sportsmen. It's really hard to see a good thing talking about how Africans are good sportsmen. It's rare to see it, and it is all over media, and that's the truth. You see Africans are doing a lot of things. When you go in history, those people who are good in history, they can get to know even when they mention about the innovations. Africans were part and parcel of innovations as workers, but they put the head as the Europeans or Americans, those people. So it's we as teachers who have to bring out the hidden stories about Africans in general, what to say. So
Africans, or are you talking about black people?
Yeah.
Brown people living in Europe, living in the US, or living in Canada? Are you talking about telling the stories that have not been told?
Yes.
Of successful black people living in white communities.
Yeah.
Are you talking about this? Because when you talk about Africans, of course, there are also people who are living in Africa who are not, of course, black. You need to be clear. I don't know whether am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
Because I've met one time at my organization in Uganda, we had an intern who came to work in the organization, and she was a white person, but she introduced herself. I am from South African. I am an African. And I saw the CV. At first I was like, okay, the white person from South African, she's African. But of course, she had two passports, German and South African passport, maybe. But of course, she was also from German. But she lives in South Africa.
In this aspect, I don't want to engage myself in the so white black.
Okay.
That's where I have a really big problem of identifying people as black or white. That's why I use in my statements, you hear me saying Europeans, American, Africans. That's also generalizing, but I don't want to put colors in my statements because I have like my reasons, of which next time we'll come back, then we'll talk about why I'm not saying blacks or why I'm saying African. On this topic, I'm talking about the Africans, the people who come from Africa, and they're staying in Europe or in America or in Canada, whatever race they are in, yeah?
About those raised and grown up here.
Raised and grown up, as long as they have like African, the way they look like Africans, you know what I'm saying?
Who looks like an
Africans, they have like, okay, you want me also to bring in that? It's good to ask you that question. It's really totally good. We have also kids, we have like in intermarriages. So you see our look is a little bit different. This have like light skinned, and for us we have like a little bit of dark skin. Some people call it chocolate or colored people. So it is there, but I've read many books and engaged in too many things of being categorizing people with color black and white. We'll come back to that.
But remember, color is there. You will never say there's no color.
Yeah.
So the moment you start saying, I'm not going to talk about color, when color is there, you're a teacher, a kid will come and say, yes, Mr. Matov, why are you black?
Yeah. And
you are going to say that I'm not going to appreciate that the color is not there. No. Am I going to say that the kid is color blind?
No. I will say I'm not black. I will tell him, okay, look at the chalkboard. Which color is it? It's black. Which color is this?
There are some chalkboards that are white. So.
Yeah, of course, which is black or any color. Black is everywhere. You can see it. And I say, what is this? Is it black? And when you look at this, what is this? Is this black? You see me here. Am I black?
So my question is this. Do you still say yourself that you don't want to talk about color? But because there are people who say that I don't look at color. It's human beings are human beings. That's okay. And I appreciate that. But the point is that, the word color is there. Color is seen. Green will be green. Red will be red. Light will be light. Dark will be dark. Black will be black.
But am I black when you see me?
Brown would be brown.
Why are you not mentioning brown? Why did you say the question that the kid will ask me, Adrian, why are you brown?
Of course it is.
Because I'm not black.
I'm asking you because I'm asking you what would be asked, what may be.
Yes.
Yeah. And because
that question I've already had.
Because I've met people who have said, I don't want to be called black. I want to be called brown. Ich bin nicht schwarz. Ich bin brown. And so you get that. Ich bin dunkel. You see, people have their reasons you've talked about already.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we are switching from our question. We need to go back to the real question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, talking about that, the challenges, we teachers, what we have to do, that was the question I think. Me as a person who have got an opportunity to study the Africans who live in Europe, what I do, I portray who we are. I'm not a pretender. I act who I am. I do things in my way.
I think it would be better to say that I do portray who I am, not who we are, because you may not.
Of course, I say I do who I am. I don't pretend. But as we said, it's like a sample, it's like a reference. When say Martin Luther said da 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 da, and people put it in a paragraph, and people appreciate that. What is it? So I do what I am, and I portray who I am. I don't want to pretend, or I want to pretend to be how the Germans are, how they do things, how they do. Of course, the system's there, how we have to teach, how to do that. But there's me, because even the Germans, they cannot all be the same, So they are teachers, that's why their names. They say Otako, Adrian, because they want to put that clear that when Otako does that, it is Otako. And the fingerprints are there and everything. So what I'm doing, I portray who I am. And people who know that I come from Uganda, I come from Africa, those kids, I don't need to tell them, when you make this statement that Africans, they are poor, they are poor, Africans, they are this, they see me. So when they hear these statements, what the question we raise, give an example, if they are watching news at home, and they see Uganda is doing this and this, those people eat people, they da da da. The kid will stop and say, hey, wait a minute. Mom, we have a teacher from Uganda. Matov is from Uganda. He doesn't eat people. He does with us and he's a happy man and he doesn't beg us money. And he looks also, he eats apple with us. We does this. So I give a clear example to the kid, and that kid will grow up knowing that I saw someone, I know someone. keep in touch. So I believe more from the practical work, because what the media, of course we are not the one controlling the media. Look at the Facebook, the way it does its things, the TikTok. They bring things. There's something I witness and I recognize, that when you have feedbacks for, you always watch, let's say sports, for example, football. They make sure the people controlling Facebook will give you more sports news. Have you witnessed that? They control you indirectly. Don't giving you other information, but say, oh, Taco's interested in sports, Edwin is interested in music. He always looks at this video. So they give me more of that. So we as teachers, it's sweet to be, me as a person who is like a black person, as you want me to say it.
I don't want you to say that. You can say so, whatever you can say.
Okay.
Yeah.
As an African who is working in German as a teacher, what I do, I make sure I do who I am. And the kids, when whatever they say in media, whatever they do, they will say, they will see, and they compare themselves. I don't need to come with my statement with 100 statements. Africans will eat, Africans will sleep, Ugandans will do this. But they will look at me, the way I do things, they get the answers. So most of questions, we answer them unknowingly that we're answering questions from these kids. Kids are very smart and they learn very fast, more than we adults. They see things, and when you change something, they say, but Mr. Matov, last time you said this, but now you're saying this straight away. And I like them so much, because for them, they don't pretend. They tell you what they think straight away. So what we have to do, people have opportunities, and wherever you are also, you work with the school. You do your part as an African. But however much you try to push, this is my opinion. I'm not saying it's a must, but what I do. However much I try to say, coming with a blackboard and write them, we Africans, we don't do this. You cannot say this statement to other Africans. We I do. I just do, and then I will leave them to judge me or to judge Africa, depending on me or what I do. But I make sure I portray what people want also to portray out of me. So I give myself a big task to represent where I come from. Because however much I'm fighting to generalize, and I do this, it will keep in people's heads that our Ugandans are doing this and this. So, to summarize everything what to say, also to engage in the conferences like with teachers, the conferences, because they have many topics talking about African studies, they should, I think we could also advise them how they should phrase them, because most of them are ignorant about Africa. They also get the information from media, from the books the books which are really wrote by them. People who just visit Africa, they are the one who writes our history. So we also, that's why most of the teachers from me where I work from, or they come and they engage. Is this true in Africa? It's like I attend this course, but they ask, Edwin, is this true in Africa that things are this and this and this? And they say, no, in where I come from, we do this and this and this in front of students. They also like no pretense or no going behind and say, no, Africa, you don't need to say this. But in front of students, they talk about a topic and they have questions. Do you have cassava in Uganda? When the kids are there, Matov, help us. In Uganda, do you have cassava? Do you know something like this? And I say, yes, we have cassava, does this and this and this. So straight away, you don't need to pretend or to act good or to do more, being a hero. Just to be open-minded and do your job. That's what I do.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Matovu, or Edwin Matovu, for your opinion. Yeah. So in summary, you will say it's very important to talk about the topic of racism against black people in the schools.
It is important. So, but we, people who come from Africa, we have extra work. Because even European people talk about it. Our friends who always really want to engage in that, and they really find a way of punishing students who really bring those racism statements. But for us, we have extra work. What are the extra work for Africans who live in Europe? To act the way we want people to perceive us. Don't make statements you don't do. Don't be a pretender. When they say Africans don't keep time, please, as you say, not all Africans don't keep time. Please be an example. Live an exemplary life. That's why I call it extra work for Africans who live here. Portray our picture in the right way, as you say.
Yeah, when you say Africans who live here, I still have the same question, because there are people who are born in Europe, in the US, wherever they are, in Canada. They are black, brown, people of color living here. They were born here. You get that? But of course, maybe the world sees anyone who's a BPOC, black person of color, or a black person, a brown person from Africa. But of course, not all of them are from Africa. The people who are coming from Jamaica, there are people coming from the Caribbean, the people who are all over the world. Black people have been all over. So, I mean, maybe we need to be clear.
Yeah. The good thing about it that when you introduce yourself and the way we do things differs, depending where you grew up from. It differs. When you see an African who was born in Europe and an African who was born in Uganda, they differ, the way they do things, because the people who raise them, the environment differs. So the way their actions, the way they speak, the way they do things. That's why you find a kid whose father is a Ugandan and the mother is German, is doing something which is contrarily different from me or someone who was born in Uganda. So that at first sight, they will see them, okay, this is an African. But when they engage them, they of course be different. But for me, my task, I give it to the Africans who were born in those African countries and they migrated, they moved to live in Germany or in Europe or in USA, to portray what we want people to know about us and to be real. We don't need to be pretenders to act good when you're bad. So just know when you feel bad when they say Africans don't keep time. And I'm sorry to repeat this statement, but it is very famous everywhere. That Africans, they have a problem with time. Please, as you go against that statement, act. Be on time.
Okay, thank you so much. So, since you're a musician, you're an artist, what is your opinion about this music and art? Can it be one of the best way of self-empowering yourself as a person living, or a black, brown, black person of color living in Europe or in the US or in Canada, to empower yourself?
Music.
What is your experience?
Yeah, thank you. Music and dance and art in general, for me, it has worked as a therapy, to me personally, because I grew up in that kind of environment where I had a lot of needs and I couldn't afford. But through music, through dance, it has really bring me to connect to many people and to heal where some things I cannot afford. And when I use dance, I feel free. I feel relieved. I feel like I'm open. I can fly when I do this art, especially me as a dancer and a musician. When I do my music, I'm me. I'm talking to myself inside, and I'm kind of living and connecting to the spiritual world. I feel like it's beyond just doing music or just dancing. When I start engaging, it brings me to the connection of inner self and to the spiritual world. And it's like a therapy to me. It cleanses me, it relieves me. And as I told you that I've engaged music and dance I've done a lot of workshops in different schools here in Europe. And you find sometimes we tend to do workshops with students with special care, which have people who have mental problems, or people who are depressed, or people who have many challenges in life. But when you start doing music with them, there's something you see in their eyes, that something opens up. Someone who you found, she doesn't want to do anything. She's like, I'm done with the world. Whenever we introduce music to them or you introduce dance to them, they open up like therapy. You see the inner happiness. There's this happiness you can see, and you see someone who's really happy, someone who feels like, oh my God, I feel myself. So for me, music, dance, as a professional, I use it more as like the healing process, like a therapy, like connecting myself also to other people, but also to spiritual world, also because I've done it several times, and it is something special about, let me say, art in general. Also people who do graphics or do paintings, when you find them in their process, that process, like, they go beyond. So I think it is very important to use music or art in general to help yourself, to motivate yourself to come back to your strength to stand. Yeah.
So thank you so much.
You're welcome, sir.
Edwin. By the way, listeners, Edwin is one who did the music for our podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hear that podcast starting, I mean, the start of the episode, you hear that music is by Edwin.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm happy to always have you on the podcast. So before we end our conversation, do you have something else you would like to share that maybe we have not shared about? Maybe a personal experience about doing music as an artist here in Europe mainly.
Yeah, we Africans who grew up in African countries and migrated to Europe or wherever you are, we should always create space for ourselves. Create space in what do I mean by this? If you have a talent or if you have the skill, you try to find time to do something you like, to do something you love. If you want to be chatting with your friends, create that time. Call that person. Engage. If you're like an artist, you do music, for example, find those people who do music. Find those people who do dance. Find those people who do paintings. Go there, because it will help you to stay strong of all the challenges we have here with the languages, with financial problems, with family, with what. Find that something you love, something you really treasure, to find time for it and do it. That one, it has helped me personally, that whenever I feel like I'm down, I go back to my studio, I sit down, I play my music. I feel I'm down, I call you, Otaku. I say, hey, my brother, how's going on? I share my experience. And be free, feel free to share your experience. It's really good. You help others and you help yourself to share, and don't be shy. Bring it out, and you hear from other people, because many things which has happened to you as a black man, as my friend wants me to say, but as an African who lives in Deutschland or who lives in Europe, it can help other people, and you also learn from them the same experience. Maybe they found a solution for it. So let's keep in community, let's share, let's keep with people who love us, and let's really push ourselves. We are there, and this is our generation, this is our time to turn out the history as it was, that we're supposed to be inferior. It is time for us to be superior, not to be a superior and put others down, but also to stand, also to come to the level of moving forward. That's what I can say.
Oh, thank you so much, Edwin Matovu. Our dear listeners, we have come to the end of our conversation of this podcast, this episode with Edwin Matovu. And I don't know when and what time you have had this, but it is always our pleasure to share with you our conversations. And if you want to support Edwin Matovu with his music, you can find it on very many online platforms. I'm sure Edwin would like to share where they can find his music.
Yeah, you can find my music in on every music platforms. Give an example of like Spotify. You can find it on YouTube, iTunes. So everywhere there is music platforms, you just type in Edwin Matovu, then everything will be okay, and you enjoy the good vibes.
The good vibes.
Yeah.
Yes, as we end this episode, I think, Edwin, we can have some of your music. Is it okay, or we can?
Yeah, I can.
Of course, I can also have it played in the episode, if you say so.
Yeah, I think that will be also good, but I can play one of my last release.
Mm-hmm.
I dedicated it to this. Yes. This is gonna be the long time of crying and suffering, lamenting and cursing. But the question is, who's gonna make your life better than today? Just thinking out loud. Yeah. Life is journey. Life is karma. You better watch out what you do. You better watch out what you do. Ebyange nabikwasa oyo yantonda nze yangabirira. Mu bbugumu ne mu bunnyogovu oyo yankuuma. Taata weebale, sina kyakuwa, sina kyakuza, ndi muntu buntu. Okujjako okusinza n'ettendo eryo likuddire. Okujjako okusinza n'ettendo eryo likuddire. Yeah, that one of my last songs I've released. It's called Karma. You reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow.
Yeah, and Hindu and Buddhism, they call it karma, and many people call it, they know karma. You reap what you sow. So, thank you so much. You can find my music on any music platform, and I'm really so humbled to be always invited on this great platform to share my experience, what I know, and to learn from also you and from the people, from the listeners. And people, let them be free to comment, also to share their experience, to come, to like and to share this podcast. It might help people around, and also to help them, maybe one day they could also share their experience and we learn from each other. Teach one, each one.
Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you so much, sir.
We not only have voices for a podcast, but also faces for YouTube. Don't miss your next episode. Hear my true story.
Thank you for listening to our podcast, Music by Edwin Matovo, hosted and produced by Otako. Subscribe to our podcast for more stories and visit us on our website, hearmytruestory.com, for more stories. All the links are listed in the show notes of this podcast.